Okay, so we're going to graph y equals 4 sine of x. First thing we're going to do is we're going to identify our amplitude and our period. Amplitude is the easiest. All I have to do is look in front of sine. I see a 4. That 4 is my amplitude. So that tells me on my graph, and you guys will see typically when we do these graphs, excuse me, we're going to focus on the positive x values. The negative ones are still there, but we're going to mainly be graphing positive ones. So my amplitude is 4, so that means that my graph on my y is going to go up to 4, down to negative 4. Okay? And we know that the starting point of my graph is the origin. So I can kind of graph that right away. Okay, now let's identify the period. We're going to take 2 pi and divide that by whatever number is in front of x. I don't see any number there, so I know it's 1. So my period is 2 pi. So what I can do right away to help me get those radian values on there, because remember, technically this is still your x-axis, but what we're actually drawing on here is the sine value. Okay? So, or the different values of theta, your angle. So we're going to go from 0 to 2 pi, and I can just put a 2 pi out there right away. You guys don't have to worry about what you mark your graph by if you graph in this method. It's really helpful. Okay, so we have our period, we have our amplitude. Now we want to figure out the intercepts. That's the next easiest thing to do. Okay, the first intercept is going to be half of my period and then 0. Well, my period is 2 pi. Half of 2 pi is pi. So I'm going to go to pi. I'm just going to go halfway between 0 and 2 pi. That's got to be pi. And I'm going to put a dot for point. My next intercept is going to be the period and 0. That one's easy. I should already have that on there. I can just put a dot right away. So I have my 3 intercepts. My first one's my starting point. Then is the halfway point. Then is the actual period. So those are my intercepts. Okay, last thing I have to do is to draw in my maximum and my minimum. The maximum is going to be the point that's halfway between the 0, 0 and your first intercept. Okay, so halfway between 0 and pi, again, we can think of it as 1/4 of the entire period. But halfway between 0 and pi is pi over 2. Okay? If I thought of it as 1/4 of the period, I could go 2 pi times 1/4. I get 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2. So however you guys think of it is totally fine. But we're basically just splitting our graph, our curve, up into fourths. So pi over 2, and then it's the amplitude, 4. Okay, so halfway between is pi over 2. We want to make sure we're labeling all of these points on our x-axis. 4. That's my maximum. My minimum is going to be 3/4 of the period, or the halfway point between 0 and 2 pi. We kind of know what that's going to be. You guys can think of your quadrantal angles, okay? But if we think of it as 3/4 of the period, I'm going 3/4 times 2 pi. That leaves me with 6 pi over 4, which simplifies to be 3 pi over 2. So that's going to be the halfway point. And then it just goes down to your negative amplitude. So then all we have to do is draw in that curve. Now notice how it doesn't just stop at those endpoints. This is a periodic function. We're just graphing one period. Okay, so we need those arrows. There we go. Done with graphing the sine value. Now what you guys might want to do is try a few out of your book. Otherwise be ready for a lot of practice tomorrow. Now please don't forget to watch graphing a cosine function and then a tangent.